Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and this is the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, the music podcast on where I interview singers and musicians from genres of black music: gospel, jazz, blues, old school classic soul, old school hip hop, today's hip hop and R&B, Caribbean, Latin, Afrobeat, Afro-Latina, blue-eyed soul, disco, go-go, line dances, and the Lost 45s. So come with me as I take you on to a trip to the destination genre of black music right now on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Legal Shield is a proud sponsor of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Have you been involved in any types of accidents? Have you been a victim of identity theft? Have you been a victim of a computer fraud scam? Have you been in disputes with your tenants or landlords? If your loved one dies and they didn't write up a will for you or for your family, or you and your spouse are filing for divorce, or if you need help by opening up your small business, give Legal Shield a try. Visit their website at LegalShield.com and tell them you heard it here on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Do it today. You'll be glad you did. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., creator and host of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Now, before I bring up my special guest, I have good news to share with you. I have a new website, and you can look for it at the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. That's right, folks. I have a new website called the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. If you have a computer, laptop, notebook, or if you have a desktop computer and it has either MSN or AOL, make sure you type in the name of my podcast website, the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. And if you have Google on your smartphone, make sure you type in the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. That's where you find all of my news blogs, or whatever you want to call it. That's where I tell you what's going to be on the next episode for the entire month. So please check out my website and please pass it on. Make sure you check out my website, the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. That's the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast.com. In the meantime, enjoy today's episode and thank you for your support. Welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and I have a special guest on my show, and it's a Father's Day episode. And this gentleman that I'm about to introduce is one of the sisters of Debbie Varsalona, and I've known his sister, Debbie, at CBS for many years, and she had recommended me to have her brother to be a guest on my show. So on this episode, the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, we are celebrating the fathers on this Father's Day episode. And I was just looking through my Facebook homepage that Debbie had posted up about her father, Bart Varsalona, who is a jazz trombonist. He has toured with Stan Kenton, Woody Herman, Boyd Rayborn, Artie Shaw, and Charlie Parker. And during the studio sessions, he has worked with the late Bobby Darin and the late Judy Garland. So please help me welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. He is the son of the late Bart Varsalona, and his name is Joseph Varsalona. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, Sam. I'm well, thank you. How are you? This is an honor and a pleasure to be part of your broadcast.
Thank you so much for volunteering. And again, a special shout out to your sister, Debbie Varsalona Artem, who is a friend and
Oh,
colleague. I worked at CBS. I've known her when she was working in the law department for 13 years, and she had worked at 1515 Broadway, where
Yeah,
my law department from BlackRock, where I worked at for 35 years, had moved to 1515 Broadway. And
yeah.
then by 2006, my former CEO boss, Leslie Moonves, has decided
Hmm.
to split it in half, cash flow, that is. So
Yeah,
now all of the law department from 1515 have moved to the 31 building, 31 West 52nd Street. We call it Pink Rock. But as I said, I have known your sister for 13 years. She's like a friend. She's like a godmother to me.
uh,
She has always been there. And yes, sharing her experiences as being a breast cancer survivor.
yes.
So, as I said in the intro, when I saw that post on my Facebook, I said, we got to talk about this because you don't hear any, you know, dads or grandfathers who've been musicians. And as a church deacon at my church,
Hmm.
Community Protestant Church in Co op City in the Bronx, New York, when I had to attend funerals, when I look at their accolades, his or hers, and when I see music on there, and I said to myself, we never talk about this,
Yeah,
especially for Black History Month and Women's History Month. So it's my mission to bring something to the podcast. And as me growing up, when I'm watching all of the shows, if there's nothing on for Mother's Day or Father's Day, they should have something on. So I'm very delighted to have you here on my show and to get to know your late father. So we're going to talk
uh-huh.
about everything about your father, who was
Uh-huh.
a trombonist musician. So
Yes.
let's get started, shall we?
All right. Well, first of all, I just like to add my praises for Debbie. She's my hero, and she's my other mother. She took care of me and my younger sister when my parents were away or out or whatever, and we we just spent many days together, many hours together, and she's my hero.
Okay. Well, it's a very wonderful shout out to your sister, Debbie.
Yes, yes.
Now, as I was saying, let's get the show started, shall we? Now, let's get to know your father a bit. Can you tell us a bit about your father's origin story? Where was he born? And what
Mhm.
type of environment did your father grew up in?
Well, he was the second child of Italian immigrants. My grandparents, Giuseppe and Giuseppina, or Joseph and Josephine Varsalona, came to the United States in 1912, I believe, 1913, and they came from a town called Castel Termini in Sicily. And my grandfather's brother had come to Bayonne, New Jersey, and he sponsored my grandparents. So they came over to the United States with my Aunt Jean, who was born in Sicily. And then my dad was born in 1918, and he was born in Bayonne, New Jersey. And they were a basic working class family. And Bayonne, New Jersey was an industrial town. And they had, well, my grandfather was a boilermaker. He worked for a company called Babcock and Wilcox, and my grandmother was a seamstress. And
Mm, okay.
yes,
Now, did your father went to high school, and if so, which high school did your father went to?
so he was the first graduating class of Bayonne High School in Bayonne, New Jersey, and he graduated in 1937.
Okay. Now, did your father went straight to college, or did he went straight to the military?
No, he didn't. He didn't either. He actually was, while he was in high school, he was in different bands. He worked for the Polish. There were different communities. There was the Polish community, the Irish community, the German community, and he played in all these different bands when he was in high school. And so he just, when he graduated high school, he went on the road. He worked first in the New York World's Fair in 1939, and then he joined up with the band Al Donohue's orchestra and recorded with Al Donohue's orchestra in the early 1940s.
Mhm. Now, growing up, do you remember how old your dad when he started playing the trombone or any musical instruments?
Well, I guess he started playing the violin when he was in grade school, and then when he got older, I believe he was at a pawn shop and he saw a trombone in the window, and he wanted it, and so he bought it and he started playing the trombone, and then he became obsessed with the trombone.
Okay. Now, growing up, ever since your dad had played the trombone, was playing the trombone was his calling?
Oh, absolutely. I believe it was like from heaven, that he was, the trombone was his love. I think he loved it more than my mother and my sisters and I.
Mm,
He really he lived for the trombone.
okay. Now, how old was your dad when he married your mom, and how many years they have been married?
Dad was 30 and mom was 20 when they got married in 1948, December of 1948. He met my mom. Well, so Stan Kenton's orchestra was playing at the Paramount Theater, and my mom, who lived in Rego Park, actually Forest Hills at the time, would sneak off, from school and go with her girlfriend to see the bands play at the Paramount Theater. And so my mother and her girlfriend went to see the Stan Kenton Orchestra, and my dad, they kind of found themselves sitting in the front row. And my dad, when he would have his solo, he would play with the spotlight and see if he saw an attractive girl in the audience, and they try to like get her attention by getting the spotlight to reflect off his trombone and to twinkle in her eye. And apparently he saw my mom and did this, and apparently she her girlfriend said, "Hey, Anne, I think the trombone player's got a got a thing for you." And she's like, "No, what are you crazy?" So after the performance, my mom went to the stage door and waited for the musicians to come out, and then came my dad, and they started talking, and they went to Walgreens across the street and had a cup of coffee, and as they say, the rest is history. 6 months later, they were engaged, and 6 months after that, they were married.
Mm. Now, what was some of your dad's favorite musicians?
Um, well, he loved Louis Armstrong, uh, raved about Louis Armstrong, and but he he actually not Glenn Miller. Benny Goodman was another favorite of his, and but Stan Kenton, he really admired Stan Kenton, and respected him.
Mm. And who were some of your dad's musical influences that had inspired him to play the trombone or any other musical instrument?
Well, there was a trombonist named Big Chief, who and Jack Teagerton, and I'm trying to think of who else. Um, I guess, I mean, I can't think of his name now, but well, Tommy Dorsey too, you know, was an influence on him.
Now, I got a chance to check out the music video on YouTube, which includes the instrumental Southern Scandal, where
Yes,
I see your dad on the trombone.
yes,
And how
all the
many
way to the right.
years? Yes, the one on the
Yeah,
right. Yes.
yes.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Now, how many years did your dad have trouble with Stan Kenton?
So he traveled with Stan Kenton from 1942 to 1951. So it was at 9 years. But Kenton's band broke up a bit. You know, he would break up about 3 times, and so during the breakups, my dad would go work with other bands like Charlie Ventura or Boyd Rayburn or Artie Shaw's band while the Kenton band broke up. And but then also Stan Kenton would, even though my dad was based in New York and Stan Kenton was based in Los Angeles, Stan would call my dad to, when he was coming to New York, to contract musicians for him, New York musicians to perform. And there was a TV show called Music 55, which my dad contracted all the musicians for that. And it was a TV show featuring Stan Kenton and his orchestra. And my dad contracted all the musicians for that show for Stan.
Now, your dad has played with other orchestra as well as conductors. You mentioned Stan Kenton and
Yes.
also Woody Herman and Boyd Rayburn, Artie Shaw, and Charlie Parker. How
Yeah.
many years have your dad has traveled with those musicians and also big band and musical conductors?
Easily 20, 30 years. Um, you know, he he was always he was a top an A list, at the musicians union. So, he would always get the A gigs. He also recorded with J.J. Johnson and Kay Winding, um, the Sort of Finnegan Orchestra. Did I mention Charlie Ventura um, and Neil Hefti and his orchestra? So, he was a working musician.
Hmm. Okay. Now, did you and your sister Debbie had traveled with your mom, as you know, with your dad, whether it's local in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, or traveling across the states or going overseas?
Well, no, we've never gone overseas with my dad. Actually, he never worked overseas. But, well, we did. My dad did these concerts. There was one where they were like rock and roll concerts at the Paramount Theater or at the Brooklyn Paramount or the Brooklyn Fox Theater, and we would go see him there. But also in the 1960s and early 70s, my dad used to work with an Italian singer named Jimmy Roselli, and Jimmy Roselli was a very popular Italian singer, and actually he grew up down the block from Sinatra, and he was sort of like Sinatra's competitor. And so my dad worked in his orchestra, and so we would go see him whether he was playing at the Westbury Music Fair or um, or in the city, at club dates.
Hmm,
But
okay.
but um,
Yeah.
but my mother would travel with my dad, but not us kids.
Okay. Now, have you and your sister Debbie have ever gotten a chance to see your dad, whether it's in the studio with working with Bobby Darin or Judy Garland or any other singers and musicians?
No, just with Jimmy Roselli. Unfortunately, we never really got to go got to go see him.
Mhm. And What about seeing him performing at the Broadway musicals in that little orchestra band, whether it's the play Damn Yankees, Gypsy, or West Side Story? Did y'all get a chance to be in the front row
Um,
to see
well,
your dad?
my mother, of course, was, and my sister Joellen, my oldest sister, went to see Gypsy. Damn Yankees, no. He was also in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, which I went to
Mhm.
see when I was a little kid. Um, I went with him to see that, to be there. Um, but no, my sisters didn't go.
Okay. Now, how old were you when your father died on January 23rd, 1984?
I was 22 years old. He was supposed to pick us up at the train station, and yeah, he never showed up. And I called home, and he had passed. I had gotten my sister, and she said that she heard him playing his trombone, and he he stopped playing, and then he put it down, and he dozed off, and then he fell asleep, then passed away in his sleep peacefully.
Mm, okay. Now, do you still have your father's trombone?
Yes, it's proudly displayed in my house.
Now, while he's not performing, tell us about the Bart Barcelona that we didn't know.
Well, he was definitely a cool cat. He spoke a language that I wouldn't even dare to try to copy. The jazz musician language. I always said he could conjugate the verb dig. I dig this, and yeah, in its many forms. Um, he was a cool cat. He was definitely a character, um, but he was a family man. Family came first to him. And he loved my mother dearly. They were married for 35 years, but he broke his butt working because he would actually paint houses or paint apartments and then go work a gig. So he would work in the city, paint an apartment, bring his tux with him, shower, shave, get changed into his tux, and then go from a painting gig to a gig at the Copa with Bobby Darin or you know Sam Cooke, um, or the Martin and Lewis. He worked with Martin and Lewis too, and then also he actually we did go to see him at the Playboy Club. He worked for many years at the Playboy Club in Great Gorge, New Jersey, and there he worked with Mel Torme and Bobby Darin and Jim Bailey and Dean Martin and all the headliners.
Okay. Yeah, when you mention Martin and Lewis, I think, well, oh, wait a minute. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, the double
Yes,
dynamic
yes,
duo.
yes, yes, yes. He had some crazy stories to tell about them. Unfortunately, I can't remember them, but I just remember him laughing hysterically, about what they would do on the stage.
Hmm. Now, if you was writing a Father's Day poem about your dad, what would
Yeah.
it be about?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not really a poet, um, but I think it would be inspiration and love of the family and love of music and how music. Well, he always used to always say that music is a part of life, is a part of the rhythm of life, and so
Hmm.
I guess I don't know. That's a tough question,
Mm.
but
Yeah, because I saw something in the quote. It's when your father was practicing. He says, "Practice makes perfect."
Yes,
And
and he always said, um, well, he would practice 4 hours a day, every day, you know, and that's the music that I grew up with, was listening to him practice. His scales, the well, he loved classical music too. He loved Stravinsky and Bela Bartok and Peter and the Wolf. I forgot who wrote that. And Prokofiev. Or um, but getting back to practicing, he said you can't make up for lost time. And he was a devout uh, practicer. He 4 hours every day religiously, and practice makes perfect.
mm,
So, um, he was proud of his position. And actually, one time I went to see Duke Ellington's orchestra at Birdland, and Mercer Ellington was conducting. And I went up and I introduced myself to Mercer Ellington. And I said, my dad was a bass trombonist. And he said, who was your dad? And I said, Bart Barcelona. He said, no, he said, your dad was the bass trombonist. So I thought that was just moving, Mercer Ellington saying that my dad was the bass trombonist. My dad was the
mm,
first bass trombonist in a jazz orchestra. Before that, the bass trombone was just used for military or concert orchestras, not for a jazz.
wow. Now, you when you mentioned Peter and the Wolf, I remember that play, Peter and the Wolf.
Yes,
So the one that I knew was the late Leonard Bernstein when I saw him
yes.
at the Beacon Theater. He was
Hmm.
doing his version of Peter and the
Oh,
Wolf,
Peter
and
the
I
Wolf.
had the
Yes.
LP
Oh,
growing
really?
up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, we had the
Hmm.
78s. The 78 records. The 78 RPMs.
Hmm.
Yeah, we used to listen to them religiously.
Uh huh. Okay. Now, here's a question that I always ask my guests: living or dead, which musician that your dad, and especially you and your sister Debbie, would have wished they would have wanted to meet, or as your dad will want to perform with?
Oh, I have to say Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong. My dad idolized Louis Armstrong.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here on the Black Soul Music Experience, I always ask my guests who was the R&B black artist of all time. But since this is a Father's Day episode, and since your father was a jazz trombonist, and in honor of Father's Day, I'm going to be doing the Black Soul Music Experience podcast top 10 Father's Day songs of all time. Now, here's how it works. We start like a top 10 countdown, like the show America's Top 10, hosted by the late Casey Kasem. And we would start at the bottom five. We will find out what was the best Father's Day song that had the best radio airplay. And when we get to the top five, we will find out what was the biggest million selling songs of all time. Did that song receive a gold single, or did that song receive a platinum or double platinum or triple platinum, or did that artist perform that song on American Bandstand or Soul Train or the Midnight Special or NBC's Saturday Night Live or Solid Gold, or did they perform that song on PBS, whether it's
Hmm.
the Great Performances program or there's just a regular special airing during Pledge Month? Or did they had their music video, which was either on MTV or BET or VH1, or those local video shows, which was aired in syndication across the nation and around the world? Did that artist got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or did they had their own special, whether it was either on HBO or Showtime? So I'm gonna start off with my top 10 Father's Day
Hmm.
songs, and Joe, you can think of yours while I start off with mine.
Okay.
So, number 10, I'm starting off with the song called My Father's Eyes, performed by Eric Clapton. And this was the song in loving memory of his father. And he always, Eric Clapton himself, always think about his son who was tragically killed in that downfall back
Yes.
in 1990. So it always resonates
Yes.
his mind. So we'll put down the song My Father's Eyes by Eric Clapton at number 10. Number 9, Just the Two of Us. Not the one from Bill Withers, but the
Uh,
rap version with Will the Fresh Prince Smith. So he decided to turn it around
hmm
and make that song, dedicated to his son. So that was the name of the song, Just the Two
Uh-huh.
of Us. And I saw the music video itself. So I'll put that down, performed by Will the Fresh Prince Smith at number 9. Number 8, Dance with My Father by the late Luther Vandross.
hmm
And this was his first Father's Day song, which was from his album Dance with My Father, released on the J label back in 2003. And this will have been his final LP. And in case you may not know, that song was co written by Richard Marx. It won a Grammy Award for Best Songwriting at the 2004 Grammy Awards. So rest in peace to the one and only Luther Vandross
hmm
and his song Dance with My Father at number 8. Number 7, Father and Daughter by Mr. Paul Simon. And it was released on the Jive label back in 2002. And this was from the movie The Wild Thornberry soundtrack LP. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Song and also nominated for a Golden Globe Award. That too for Best Song. So we'll put number 7, Father and Daughter by Mr. Paul Simon. Number 6, A Song for My Father, performed by jazz musician Horace Silver. It was back
hmm
in 1965, released on the Blue Note label. This was an instrumental tune, which was 6 minutes and 35 seconds long. So we'll put A Song for My Father by Mr. Horace Silver at number 6. Number 5, Patches by Mr. Clarence Carter.
hmm
And this is from his LP entitled Patches, released on the Atlantic label back in 1970. And it told a story about a young boy who seen his father struggling through the years and through his father's ailing years. He decided to quit school and help out, but mama said, "You better stay in school and make sure you get a better education, and then you can help out. But education comes first, and then we'll help out what needs to be taken care of." And yes, this song was at number 4 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts and number 2 on Billboard's Soul Singles charts, and it won a Grammy Award for Best R&B Song, which was written by General Johnson at and is won at the 1971 Grammy Award. So we'll put Patches by Clarence Carter at number 5. Number 4, Cats in the Cradle by the late
hmm
Harry Chapin, and this was released on the Elektra Asylum label back in the fall of 1974. The song went to number 1 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts back on December 21st, 1974 for 1 week. The song was nominated for a Grammy for Best Song at the 1975 Grammy Awards. Sadly, we've lost him after that car crash on I 495 Long Island Expressway on July 16th, 1981. He was on his way to doing a fundraising concert for hunger. So we'll put Cats in the Cradle by the late Harry Chapin. It tells a story about dad has to take care going to work. Son will always ask him, "When you gonna come home, Dad?" So
hmm
that was the story around that song. So I love that song. I always love that chorus. And the cat's in the cradle and the
Cradle and
silver
silver
spoon.
spoon,
Little
little
boy
boy
blue and the
blue, the
man in the
man in the
moon.
moon.
When you're
When you
coming
coming
home, Dad,
home,
I
Dad, I
don't
don't
know
know
when.
when.
We'll get
We'll have it
together
together
then.
then, son. I know
Yeah,
we'll get
love
together
that
then.
chorus. Love that chorus. So we'll put Cats in the Cradle by the late Harry Chapin at number 4. Number 3, Color Him Father by the Winstons. And this was released on the Metro Media label back in 1968. This song came out at a time when we all went to war in Vietnam. So it tells a story about a son's father who took care of everything, but unfortunately, he was sent off to war in Vietnam. And when his father was killed, a new stepfather moved in. So we'll put Color Him Father by the Winstons at number 3. Number 2, Daddy Could Swear by Gladys Knight and the Pips. And this is from the LP Neither One of Us on Motown's Soul label. And this single came out in January 1973. And I never knew that this song would be a Father's Day song because fathers out there, they be all cussing when something goes wrong. They'll be cussing with those four little words. So
Hmm.
we'll put Daddy Could Swear by Gladys Knight and the Pips at number 2. And the number 1 song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the
Yeah,
Temptations.
yeah.
It was from the LP entitled All Directions on Motown's Gordy label. And the album was released back in October of 1972. The song went to number 1 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts on December 2nd, 1972 for 1 week and number 5 on Billboard's Soul Singles charts. It won 3 Grammys, including Best R&B Vocal or Group and for Best Instrumental at the 1973 Grammy Awards. So there I have my top 10 Father's Day songs of all time. Joseph, do you have any of your favorites?
Oh, well, that's quite a list that you gave. Um, well, I think one is Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg, and also You Are the Sunshine of My Life by Stevie Wonder. My dad loved that song, and
Mm.
when in his later years, he was with a band that played at a local club, and that was part of the set list, and he would always dedicate it to my mom, when he would play it. So yeah, but I can't compete with your list.
Okay. Yep, you did what you could and
Yeah.
I applaud you for that. Now, before we wrap things up, we've talked about everything about your dad, a musician and everything. What would your dad would like to be remembered as?
A family man. I mean, I think, as a renowned bass trombonist, but also as a family man, as the father of 6 kids, and a loving husband, and just somebody who made a difference in this world. And I think he did make a difference.
Okay, what a way to close out the episode. Joseph Barcelona, thank you so much for being here on the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. It's been a pleasure
Thank you,
interviewing
Sam
with
Wilson.
you. Oh, you welcome. And again, a special shout out to your sister, Debbie Barcelona Autumn, who have recommended me to interview you. And I thank her. Thank you, Debbie, for
Thank
giving
you,
me a
Debbie.
chance to interview Joseph and everything. So, Joseph, thank you so much and
It was my
get well
pleasure.
soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm. Oh, you
Peace.
welcome. Okay, now before we close out, we got to let our audience know to download all of your favorite Father's Day songs performed by all your favorite artists that we have talked about on this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Visit iTunes.com, Spotify.com, or purchase a CD at Amazon.com. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about my podcast, please visit my website at the Black Soul Music Experience podcast.com. And if you want to check out this episode, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Look for me on these 5 platforms. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And the link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel-Wilson Jr.'s. Don't forget to add the S at the end, -studio. And I will be posting this episode on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you have a hard time getting on to riverside.fm, then please become a paid member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast number 6. If you have a computer, if you have an email address and your password, go on to the Patreon homepage where you see all of the Patreon shows done by different creators. And make sure you go to the search box and type in the Black Soul Music Experience podcast number 6, where you can check out all of my audio and video podcast episodes and the video podcast clips that you may have missed. And if you have a hard time getting on to Patreon, then I'll be posting this episode on YouTube. Go to my YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience. If you like this episode, if you love my podcast, please subscribe, please support, please give me a thumbs up, please leave a comment, and please pass it on. Thank you for joining me as I close out this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience, and happy Father's Day, everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
Well, that's about it for this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. I'm Sam Wilson Jr. Thank you for joining me, and please tune in next week for an all-new episode. The Black Soul Music Experience podcast is sponsored by the support of listeners and viewers like you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Look for my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And don't forget the link. The link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel-Wilson Jr.'s -studio. And don't forget to check out my audio and video podcast episodes by becoming a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. And please check out my video podcast episodes by subscribing to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. And please leave your comments, feedbacks, and replies by going to my Facebook homepage. Go to facebook.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. You can also tweet me on X, aka Twitter, at Sam Wilson Jr. 66, and follow me on Instagram at SAMM.Y2980. As always, partying, remember this: reach for the top and your dreams will come true, and it can happen to you. From all of us, take care. God bless. Thanks for listening. Have a good week, and please be safe.